Hey there, welcome back. Great to see you again for Law 4, Practice Emotional Delay. If you haven't watched the previous episodes yet, you're missing some important steps in this journey. Just check the description for the links and give them a watch so you can keep building on your growth one law at a time. All right, let's dive in and explore how mastering emotional delay can change the way you make every decision. Now, law number 4. Practice emotional delay. A decision made in the heat of emotion belongs to the emotion, not to you. The human mind is never more vulnerable than in the moment it is seized by emotion. Whether it is anger, fear, desire, or excitement, the rush of feeling tightens the world into a narrow tunnel where only one course of action seems visible. In that tunnel, judgment becomes a servant of impulse. What feels like strength in the moment often reveals itself, in the light of later hours, to have been folly. To master yourself in the realm of power, you must master this moment. Not by suppressing emotion entirely, which is neither possible nor human, but by delaying action until the emotional storm passes. History is littered with leaders who destroyed themselves because they could not buy themselves a moment of stillness. Alexander the Great, in the heat of drunken rage, killed Clytus the Black, one of his most trusted generals, for speaking unwelcome truths. When the fury faded, Alexander was consumed with grief, but the damage to his leadership was done. Conversely, during the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962, John F. Kennedy faced immense pressure from military advisors to launch immediate airstrikes on Soviet missile sites in Cuba. Instead, he insisted on delaying the decision, buying days for back-channel negotiations. That delay, resisted fiercely by hawks, prevented a confrontation that could have escalated into nuclear war. In these two stories lies the lesson: time changes the shape of reality. Delay is not passivity. It is the deliberate creation of space between stimulus and response, where reason can speak louder than reflex. Modern neuroscience explains why this works. Strong emotions originate in the limbic system, particularly the amygdala, which reacts faster than the rational prefrontal cortex. By delaying action, even for minutes, you give the slower, more strategic parts of your brain time to engage. This is not weakness. It is the biological foundation of composure. Religious and philosophical traditions have long recognized the wisdom in waiting. The Buddha taught the practice of mindfulness, in which one observes the arising of emotion without immediately acting on it, allowing it to dissipate naturally. In the book of Proverbs we find, "A hot-tempered man stirs up conflict, but the one who is patient calms a quarrel." Islamic tradition praises sabr, patient perseverance, as a virtue not only of endurance but of wise timing. The Stoics advised never to respond to insult or provocation in the moment, for the first response is almost always unworthy of the person you wish to be. In strategy, delay has another dimension. It shifts the power dynamic. The one who acts last often acts best because they have seen more, heard more, and forced their opponent to reveal more. In a negotiation, silence after an offer can unnerve the other party, making them speak further, clarify, or even improve their position. On the battlefield, commanders from Sun Tzu to Rommel have known the value of holding forces back until the enemy's movements have committed them to a course they cannot easily change. In politics, a leader who resists reacting to every provocation forces opponents into the exhausting position of chasing attention, while they conserve energy and shape the battlefield unseen. Yet delay must be purposeful, not indefinite. Time is a tool, and like all tools, it must be used with skill. The danger lies in mistaking hesitation for strategy. A decision delayed too long can turn into a decision made by others. The key is to set the delay with intention, to say, "I will act when the emotion has passed, when I have seen the field more clearly, when acting will cost me less and gain me more." Those who master emotional delay acquire an aura of composure that others cannot easily pierce. They become known as unflappable, unpredictable, and dangerous in their calm. Rivals cannot bait them. Allies trust their judgment. Followers feel steadied in their presence. It is a power that grows with time, because every act of restraint becomes a proof of discipline, and discipline is the spine of enduring influence. The next time emotion surges, remember, the storm will pass, and when it does, you will see the field as it truly is. In that moment, you will act not as the servant of your feelings, but as the commander of your fate. It was a humid afternoon in Colombo, the kind where even the air feels impatient. I was in a boardroom watching two partners of a joint venture circle each other like rival lions. One had discovered that the other had been quietly meeting with a competitor. His voice rose with each accusation, his words fast, sharp, and aimed like arrows. The accused sat motionless, hands folded on the table, his gaze fixed on the window as if the shouting were no more than the sound of traffic outside. For 20 minutes he said nothing, not a single rebuttal, not even a shift in posture. By the time he finally spoke, the anger in the room had burned itself into exhaustion. The accuser's tone had softened, his arguments less certain. The first words the silent man spoke were calm. "Now that you've finished, can we talk about what's actually happening?" The shift was immediate. The room's balance of power turned like a tide. That moment has stayed with me because it was pure emotional delay in action, not just waiting to calm oneself, but letting the other side drain their own strength before stepping forward. His restraint didn't just give him clarity, it gave him the authority to redefine the conversation on his own terms. The application here is deceptively simple. When emotion rises, let the other side show their full hand first. Do not compete for the floor. Let their urgency work against them. Every word they spend before you speak is information you can use. A similar scene played out in 1995 when Steve Jobs returned to Apple after years away. In his first major internal meeting, people expected fiery declarations about the company's struggles. Instead, he listened. He let managers speak at length, vent their frustrations, offer half-formed solutions. Only hours of discussion did he outline his vision, and when he did, it felt less like a command and more like the inevitable conclusion to the conversation everyone had already had. His delay wasn't inaction, it was positioning. There's a psychological trick embedded here. When you wait, you don't just calm yourself. You make the other person's reality bend toward yours. Time slows for you while speeding up for them. They start second-guessing their certainty, trying to fill the silence, revealing more than they intended. You become the one who defines when the game actually begins. In your own life, try this in smaller situations first. The next time you receive a message that provokes you, an email, a comment, a rumor, resist the urge to reply immediately. Let it sit. Watch what unfolds without your intervention. Often, the problem resolves itself, or the person clarifies their intent, removing the need for conflict at all. Other times, you'll find the extra hours give you words that are sharper, cleaner, and impossible to twist against you. Emotional delay is not about winning every argument. It's about ensuring you don't lose because you stepped into battle before you saw the terrain. It is the art of letting your opponent light the fire, then stepping in only when you know which way the wind is blowing. They called it the longest night in history. In October 1973, the world stood on the edge of catastrophe. The Yom Kippur War had escalated to the point where U.S. and Soviet forces were on nuclear alert. Inside the White House Situation Room, the pressure was relentless. Intelligence reports screamed urgency. Generals demanded immediate countermeasures. The temptation to act, to respond with overwhelming force, was almost unbearable. But Henry Kissinger, then U.S. Secretary of State, understood something the room did not. The first move in such a moment often belongs to the one who wants war most. The U.S. could match the Soviets in escalation instantly, but that was the point. Matching them now would lock both sides into a path they couldn't leave. Instead, Kissinger delayed. He stalled the decision for hours, sending vague but firm messages through back channels. He let Moscow feel the discomfort of waiting, the weight of uncertainty. Those hours changed everything. By dawn, the Soviets had softened their position, and a ceasefire was within reach. If the U.S. had acted in the heat of the night, history might have recorded not just another war, but the end of the modern world. This is the hidden architecture of emotional delay. The understanding that sometimes your greatest weapon is the tension you create by doing nothing, at least not yet. Time, in skilled hands, is a psychological lever. The longer you hold it, the heavier it feels for the other side. I once saw a scaled-down version of this in a corporate merger negotiation. The smaller company's CEO sat through an entire presentation by the larger firm's lawyers, who laid out every term, every timeline, every justification for why their offer was more than fair. At the end, they expected an immediate counteroffer or a protest. Instead, the CEO closed his folder, smiled, and said, "We'll think about it." Days passed. No call, no counter. The larger firm's team began to sweat. Had they pushed too hard? Was the deal dead? In their anxiety, they called back with a revised offer, better terms, more flexibility, and a sweeter price, without a single demand from the smaller company. That's the paradox. By holding back, the CEO had moved the entire negotiation in his favor. To apply this in your own life, you have to accept one truth. The moment you feel you must act is often the worst moment to do so. Delay is not the absence of movement. It is movement in a slower dimension, one that others rarely notice until it is too late. You can use it in arguments, in business, in personal conflicts, not to win by outshouting, but to let the other side use their energy against themselves. There is also a discipline in resisting the cultural pressure for instant responses. In a world obsessed with speed, instant news, instant messages, instant outrage, the one who moves slowly is the one who forces others to adjust. When people are used to reaction in seconds, your deliberate silence for hours, days, or even weeks is like a stone dropped into their sense of time. They cannot stop thinking about what you might do, which keeps you in their minds without you lifting a finger. This law demands courage because delay is uncomfortable. It goes against every instinct to defend yourself, to seize the opening, to fix the tension. But tension is not your enemy. It is the rope you hold in your hand. Let it pull tight. Let them tug on it until they realize you're the one deciding when and if it snaps. Some delays are measured in seconds, others in centuries. The Great Wall of China was not a sudden act of defense. It was the accumulated pause, the drawn-out preparation against northern invasions that spanned dynasties. The wall itself was less a barrier of stone than a statement of patience. We will not rush to fight you on your terms. We will wait until you are forced to fight on ours. The Venetian Republic, during the height of its power, understood this intimately. While rival powers in Europe raced into costly wars, Venice often appeared slow to commit. But behind the scenes, the Republic delayed to let others weaken each other before stepping in as a broker or opportunist. This habit of delay allowed Venice to remain a dominant trading power for centuries while empires around it burned out. In the realm of personal power, the same principle applies. A leader who can wait months or years for the right alliance, the right market condition, or the right cultural moment wields an advantage that no quick-moving rival can match. Emotional delay practiced in moments becomes strategic delay practiced over a lifetime, and that is where it transforms from a skill into a way of being. But this isn't just about patience, it's about energy preservation. Every rash move burns resources, time, credibility, influence, and actual physical strength. The energy you spend today cannot be spent tomorrow. In high-stakes games, it is not the one who moves first who wins, but the one who still has strength to move when the other is exhausted. This is why long-term delay is not weakness. It is the silent bank account from which you can draw when all others are bankrupt. The psychological warfare in this is devastating. When people cannot predict your timing, they cannot prepare for your strike. Rivals grow restless, Allies become more attentive, and the entire field bends toward your clock instead of theirs. You become the fixed point around which others revolve, not because you chase action, but because you decide when action will occur. And yet, the deepest transformation happens internally. Practicing delay trains you to become the kind of person who is not owned by urgency. Urgency is the leash by which the powerful lead the masses. To step outside of it is to become ungovernable by manipulation. You stop being a reactor and start being a composer, arranging the rhythm of your own life. Civilizations rise and fall on this same law. Rome, at its height, could delay full conquest of a territory until the timing ensured minimal resistance and maximum tribute. When it began to rush expansion without securing stability, the cracks formed that would later split the empire. Britain, in the 19th century, maintained control not by constant military action, but by timing interventions to prevent rivals from growing too strong, a strategy that extended its influence far beyond what raw force could achieve. When delay becomes part of your identity, you see time differently. You are no longer trapped in the next minute, the next week, or even the next year. You think in arcs. You become comfortable letting others sprint ahead, knowing that your moment is not at the start of the race, but at the bend in the road where they will stumble. In the end, the mastery of delay is not about moving slowly. It is about moving last. The last move is the one history remembers. The impatient are remembered for their noise. The patient are remembered for their victories. At its core, emotional delay is not only the art of timing, it's the art of refusing to let other people's behavior dictate your own. Most people are slaves to imitation. Someone raises their voice, they raise theirs. Someone demands an immediate answer, they rush to give one. Someone makes a quick move, they feel they must respond in kind. This is the invisible current that pulls most human interactions along. Psychologists have a term for this: mirroring. The subconscious tendency to copy the behavior, tone, and pace of those around us. It's a survival mechanism from our evolutionary past when conformity to group cues increased safety. But in power dynamics, mirroring is dangerous. If someone wants you to act impulsively, they need only model urgency or outrage, and your biology will do the rest. The research is clear. In a 2010 study published in Psychological Science, participants exposed to fast-talking, high-energy conversational partners tended to speed up their own speech and decision-making, often at the cost of accuracy and thoughtfulness. In contrast, when confronted with slower, more deliberate behavior, they unconsciously slowed themselves. This means your tempo is contagious. Wealth and status change the rules, but not the principle. For most people, delay is uncomfortable because it risks social disapproval. We fear being seen as rude, unresponsive, or disengaged. For the powerful, delay is easier because the world expects to wait for them. A CEO can take days to reply without explanation. A junior employee feels pressure to answer within minutes. But here's the truth: that expectation is often self-enforced. By consistently controlling your pace, you train others to adjust to it, regardless of your position. Rich or poor, the psychology is the same. The one who controls the rhythm of interaction controls the frame of the relationship. In sales, the customer who pauses before answering often gets a better deal because the seller begins filling the silence with concessions. In personal disputes, the one who does not instantly defend themselves often forces the accuser to reveal more detail, sometimes exposing their own exaggerations or lies. Think of delay not as a pause, but as a behavioral anchor. When you slow down, you become the standard to which others calibrate themselves. You are no longer pulled into their tempo. They are drawn into yours. Over time, this shifts the balance of who is leading and who is following in subtle but profound ways. Normal people feel urgency as a reaction to external pressure. The disciplined feel urgency only when they decide it's warranted. This is the gap where power lives. If you can step into a heated situation and not reflect the heat, if you can absorb it without transmitting it, you instantly stand apart. Your calm becomes conspicuous, your silence noticeable. People begin to measure themselves against you without realizing it. The application is both simple and difficult. In your next tense encounter, instead of matching the other person's energy, consciously lower yours. Reduce your speech speed by a fraction. Let pauses lengthen by a second or two. Maintain eye contact, but do not rush to fill the space. This feels unnatural at first, but watch closely. The other person will start adjusting to you. You have just taken the helm without touching the wheel. And here lies the deeper truth. The mastery of emotional delay is not simply about when you act, but about training others to expect you will act on your schedule, not theirs. Once this is embedded in their perception, you no longer need to fight for space. It is given to you. The world slows down to match your heartbeat. Delay is not simply the act of waiting. It is the art of making time an ally. Civilizations have risen and fallen on the strength of their patience. The Venetians in the Renaissance understood that rushing into every war would drain their coffers and ships. Instead, they let rival city-states fight, bleed, and bankrupt themselves, stepping in only when the terms were already in their favor. The Mongols under Genghis Khan could move with terrifying speed, but their most decisive victories often came after months, sometimes years of apparent inactivity, waiting for weather, politics, or enemy divisions to ripen the moment for attack. This kind of delay is not passive. It is an act of control, and control is a form of power. But power here operates not only on the grand scale of nations and armies, it works in the subtle currents of everyday human behavior. Most people are ruled by imitation. Psychologists call it mirroring. We unconsciously match the tempo, tone, and emotional state of those around us. This instinct, once useful for survival in tribes, now makes us vulnerable to manipulation. If someone wants to speed your decision, they only need to act hurried themselves. If they want to provoke you, they only need to act outraged. Your biology will try to match their pace before your mind even engages. Research shows this clearly. In controlled experiments, people exposed to high-energy, rapid speech unconsciously increase their own rate of talking and deciding, and often make poorer choices. Conversely, when faced with slower, deliberate behavior, they tend to slow down themselves. Tempo is contagious, and in the realm of power, the one who sets the tempo sets the terms. Wealth and status alter how delay is perceived, but not how it works. A CEO can leave an email unanswered for days without explanation, while a junior employee feels pressured to respond within minutes. But the truth is, status follows behavior as much as behavior follows status. If you consistently hold your pace, even those above you begin to adjust to it. People learn, without conscious thought, that your timing governs the interaction. This is why emotional delay is not simply a defensive tactic, it is a way of programming the social environment around you. The more you resist being pulled into other people's urgency, the more they calibrate themselves to your rhythm. That rhythm becomes your unspoken authority. In daily life, this can be applied quietly but powerfully. In a heated argument, slow your breathing, lower your tone, and let silences stretch. In negotiation, answer last, even if you already know what you will say. In decision-making, set deadlines on your own terms, not those imposed by others' anxiety. Every time you do this, you train those around you to follow your clock instead of theirs. The long-term effect is transformative. You stop living in reaction to the noise around you. Urgency stops owning you. You conserve not just your energy, but your credibility and influence, spending them only when they will have maximum impact. Like a seasoned general who keeps reserves back for the decisive strike, you become dangerous precisely because you do not spend yourself too soon. And when the moment does come, when the field is clear, the opponent's overextended, and the conditions perfect, your action will land with the weight of all the time you held back. The impatient will be remembered for their noise. You will be remembered for your victories. Time is the most patient warrior. Learn to fight on its side, and it will fight for you. All right, that's a wrap for part 4. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate your time and energy. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow and keeps the content coming your way. And be sure to check out part 3, where we dive into law number 5, detach from the noise. And as usual, it's going to be a powerful one, and you definitely don't want to miss it. Until then, take care and keep growing. See you in the next one.